we got to cut across the Prime Minister of India in East talking.
Accelerating our economic growth.
Right now, the challenge before the country is to accelerate the tempo of economic growth, at the same time to ensure that we do not slip on our obligations to moderate the price rise. And I do believe both these tasks the Finance Minister has tackled well.
What do you think there is in the budget that promises to help, shall we say, with inflation?
Well, the biggest single thing that the fiscal policy can do for controlling inflation is by controlling the fiscal deficit. The fiscal deficit in the current year has turned out to be as high as 5.9%. The Finance Minister get to 5.1% of GDP. If that happens, that would be a material contribution to stabilizing the price level, also reducing the extent of crowding out that invariably follows if government borrowing goes haywire.
Yes. Well, one reason why the fiscal deficit went a little out of control in the current year was that the global prices of fuel and fertilizer went so high that those estimates went well above. There is some proposal to reduce them. Apparently the subsidy bill will come down from about 2.4% of GDP to 1.9%. Now, how is this to be done? When are we going to hear the price increases for fuel or for fertilizer?
Well, the Finance Minister has pointed to the need to control subsidies. He has also said that he would bring the subsidies to less than 1.7% of GDP in the next 3 years. Now, that's obviously is a task which would, I think, require the government to put forward an effective program for adjusting the prices of petroleum products and adjusting other relevant prices. So we have to bite the bullet. There is no other way in which you can reduce subsidies.
Well, that's a very courageous statement. Mamata Banerjee seemed to be very worried about the possible rise in the price of these things. As we know, when there was the last attempt to increase the price of fuels, she protested and it got rolled back. Has she been consulted on this particular matter? Is she on board?
Well, I think these are compulsions of managing a coalition. There will be difficulties, there have been difficulties, but ultimately if the government is to govern, it must have a sustainable strategy for managing the economy. And I sincerely hope when the time comes to take relevant, important decisions which are tough, we will consult all our allies and take them on board.
Right. There is a proposal that, we have to do more for ensuring that subsidies and other benefits go directly to the people. There is a proposal for extending Aadhaar. There have been some controversy about Aadhaar as to whether it should be used to fully cover. Is all that settled, and is it definitely fixed that Aadhaar is going to be the main platform on which the budget is going to distribute benefits to the people?
Well, I think the Finance Minister has made that quite clear, that the report of the Aadhaar committee bringing 40 crores additional numbers has been accepted. And therefore, I think there may be controversies, and there are controversies in this sort of things all over the world. But we have, I think, begun well, and we will use the modern technological devices to cut out wastage, leaks and leakages in the delivery mechanisms for various public sectors services.
On fertilizer, there was the nutrient-based subsidy for phosphates and potassium. It was not extended to urea. As a result, there was a huge excess demand in this last Rabi season for urea instead of the other two. Is there any proposal that we will now have a nutrient-based subsidy for all three, so that there's better balanced use of fertilizer?
Well, there is general agreement that we should have a nutrient-based subsidy for all the three, but it was deliberately felt that at a time when international prices of urea were increasing, it would, I think, be wise to go slowly in moving towards the nutrient-based subsidies and decontrolling urea as well. So I think it's a question of timing, but there are, I think, compulsions which require that the government will have to take sensible decisions, even though I think they may not be very popular.
So Prime Minister, this is the third budget of UPA 2. In these 3 years, what would you say was the biggest achievement, and what would you say was the biggest disappointment?
Well, the biggest achievement was that we were able to protect the growth rate of the economy much better than most other countries. That even though our growth rate this year will be low compared with the past, even then it is something which is very favorable when we look at what's happening in the rest of the world. We are still in the league of front runners in the growth movement. And the fact that we were able to protect the growth rate, that in year 2008-2009 the growth rate fell to 6.5%, but it reverted to 8.4% next year, 8.4% year after that. This year again it has slipped, but the challenge is to get it back to the path of 8 and 9%, and that's the task that this government has set for itself.
So from this budget now, can we have a slogan on which the Congress can go for the next state election and then the general election?
Well, I think the budget is an instrument, an important instrument of macroeconomic policy, and faster, equitable, sustainable and more inclusive growth is the economic policies that our government under our leadership has put before the country. That's the challenge, how we ensure that the economy moves on to a faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth path.
Thank you, Prime Minister.